Hey viewers, welcome back to Ray of All Trades. I was browsing the local marketplace and I stumbled across an EU inverter, Honda EU2000 companion. So this is the one that ties in to campers. You use a parallel cable and connect over to the regular generator. And then you have that 30 amp 110 outlet. And I said, the price was right. It said doesn't run, needs carb cleaning. I went out and took a look at it. It's pretty nice, and you know, it's got cobwebs, things like that, so I don't think anybody's been working on it. I got a pretty good deal on it, but I did take a gamble. So the motor appears to be locked up or hydro locked is what I'm hoping. And so I either got a potential motor problem or a possible inverter problem. So both of those would make this a terrible investment. But I took a gamble on it. Supposedly it's only got a couple days of runtime on it, and it's actually pretty clean looking. But I went ahead and bought it home, and wanted to dive in and see what's going on with it. But like I said, the motor does not turn, so I'm hoping that it's hydro locked. So let's get the plug out of it and see if the motor turns once the plug's out. The plug is extremely wet. I'm hoping it's full of gas. You'll see that? That thing is just soaking wet. I'm going to try to pull this very, very, very slowly. Oh yeah. We got gas and oil bubbling up out of that thing. So let me get something to suck that out of there, and let's check the oil level and see what's going on. So what causes this is the I got some of that out of there. What causes it is the carburetor gets stuck in the open position. It's just starts filling up with gasoline, and the gasoline has no place to go, so it basically just fills up the top of the cylinder, works its way down into the oil galley, or down into the crankcase. Let's see what the oil level looks like. Yep, it's over full of oil. Not necessarily oil, it's probably the gasoline, but it's over full right now. Let's get that drained out. And we're just going to do this the old-fashioned way. Now, so far, I think I've pulled about a quart and a half out of it. It still has more. Would imagine this thing would have an oil drain somewhere, but it's not jumping out at me saying, hey, oil drain here. So let's pull this cover off real quick, just see if anything's behind that. Okay, I looked it up, and according to Jack's Small Engines, the way we were draining it's the right way to drain it. Although they didn't show them making a big mess. What they did say is it only holds 0.42 quarts. That thing's still halfway up the dipstick. They said it only holds 0.42 quarts of oil, of Honda recommended oil. I don't know if I have that. We'll probably end up putting 10W30 in just to make sure it runs. Once that's set, then I'll do another oil change. get that thing propped up. Not going to bring this thing too far. I have a feeling I'm going to do the same thing with the gasoline. Right, can I get any more out? I love these little generators because they're so light. I have a EU3000 and it is just way too heavy to be able to just throw it in the back of the camper. But I can grab two of these 2000s, and if it's wintertime, I don't need a full 4000. You know, I can just get away with just one generator. And then if it's summertime and I want to run the AC, I could put two of these together in a parallel and do the same thing that the 3000i was doing. All right, I see some oil residual here. I want to make sure that that air filter is not completely saturated. And it is. Yeah, look at all that. Let me get a little bit of brake clean and clean some of that up. While I'm at it, I want to see if I can get the breather cleaned up some and the air filter. Definitely need new ones of those. But just for testing it purposes, I want to make sure I have something available. I think the main part of my problem was probably the gasoline. And Honda gives you a drain tube for the gasoline right off of this valve off the bottom of the carburetor. So let's see if I can get that to start flowing. There it goes. Oh yeah, that is some nasty looking fuel coming out of there. Not much, but it's nasty looking fuel. That got rid of everything except the carburetor, but this thing runs off of a fuel pump back here. I'm seeing that there's a line coming off the motor is driving this fuel pump, and then the pump is obviously pulling off of the tank back here on the backside and then pumping through here. So let's get the gasoline out of here before we start attacking the fuel pump area. All right, got a fair amount of the gas out of there. So let me get the carburetor apart. Yeah, that looks terrible. Nope, I think that, wow, look at that. I think that's it. Let's see, let's get that breather off. Look at the oil coming out of that thing. Yeah, hydrolocked is one word for it. Hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully the electronics are still okay. And let's see, we got a breather line on this side. Looks like the stepper motor. Let's get that pulled off. And there was a spring that came out of there. I'm going to have to find out where that went. I bet you it went right there. Whew, what a mess. Well, everything's lubricated, I can tell you that. We're going to drain all that out again. I've just got so much oil everywhere. Since I've got oil on the bottom pan, I've got it just about everywhere. I'm going to go ahead and pull off this cover so that I can get to the fuel pump, because this is fuel pump and a shutoff switch. So I'm going to get to the fuel pump, be able to get to a lot of this other stuff to get it drained. You shouldn't have to normally do all this. Normally you can get to everything right there. This thing just happens to be covered in oil. This thing just happens to be covered in oil. All right, so let's see if we can take this tank out of here. Rubber bumper on each side. Put the cap back on so I can flip it over. Let's move that stepper motor somewhere it won't get hurt. And let's rotate it over and let this thing finish draining. Get all the oil, everything I can out of there. All right, while that thing's draining, let's get that carb cleaned up. A lot of times you don't have to have a carb kit for these things. They're actually very resilient. Just be careful disassembling them. And you also want to make sure that the choke is facing forward. The drain screw is in the right position. So when you go to put it back together, yeah, see all that in there? Basically all that is what would be gumming up this carburetor. All the passages and everything. So go ahead and get this apart. Pull out the keeper for the float. Pull out the float and the needle. That's what was stuck open, allowing all the fuel to come in. Pull the two fuel lines off. The vent lines. It's easy to see which one goes where because they'll be formed. Gently pull this gasket out. This will be the bowl gasket. We're going to want to pull out the pilot jet. We want a rough idea of where this is set. So find something that you can measure that gives you an idea. I don't know where I lost y'all. All right, so I'm pulling a emulsion tube out. Find a screwdriver that fits as close as you possibly can. This is brass inside an aluminum tube. So you want to be very cautious on this. If you have to use a wire to get it cleaned out in place, go for it. You can take a 18 gauge stranded wire and just poke through the main side here and get it cleaned up. But this has also passages on the side that you'd never get with that same wire. So yeah, all of this needs to go in the ultrasonic cleaner with a degreaser because it's in pretty rough shape. All right, let's give this thing a bath in the ultrasonic cleaner just to make sure we get all the oil passages cleaned out, make sure we get the bowl cleaned out, make sure everything is ready to go. Well, it's not going to work. Let's just put the whole thing in. Usually I just put only the necessary parts into a small jar, and then it keeps everything together and it keeps the cleaning solution down. All right, I gave it 20 minutes in the ultrasonic bath. All right, if you don't have some welding torch tip cleaners, it's a wise investment because you just never know when you're going to need one. So generally I'll take the tip cleaners and pass through all the orifices, make sure all that's clean. These are the ones I was talking about that you wouldn't be able to get if you didn't pull out this emulsion tube. So on the carburetor, you've actually got a couple of small passages as well. One passes through the pilot jet. All right, then I grab a Q-tip and work it down in there into the seat and make sure that that seat is nice and clean. All right, and then assembly is reverse of the disassembly. So take your emulsion tube, the skinny end goes in first, drop it all the way in. I'm going to take our main jet for the emulsion tube, drop it down in there. You're just going to snug it up finger tight. It doesn't need to be that tight. You don't want it to vibrate loose, but you want to be able to get it back out again. All right. Going to put the needle back into the float. So with the spring on it to make sure that it can function. So it should drop in just like that. And we're going to test this before we get too far. All right, so it should look something like that. So if it's in there correctly, we should be able to blow air through it this direction. And as soon as we turn it over, we should not be able to blow air, which is a good thing. Got our bowl gasket back on. These things are cheap, and if you have one, go ahead and replace it. I don't have one. And this is my personal versus being versus belonging to somebody. So set that on there. Remember I said that the choke faced forward. This bowl has to be able to be accessed like that. So you got to be able to get to that screw from the outside. Normally this has a gasket. I'm just going to put this on gingerly real quick while I look for that gasket. Tell you what, just because I'm not sure if I need a gasket, we're going to go ahead and make one. Let's cut ourselves a little piece. Gasket material. Let's find the punch that closest match to that hole. See if that fits. Seems to fit all right. Right through from this side now. Make sure that there's no loose pieces getting in the way of the threads. Yeah, that'll work. Now let's just cut this gasket out. Got tired of using old shoe boxes for gaskets. So I bought myself some gasket material. Seems to anchor down pretty good. All right, pilot jet goes back in now. And then the idle screw. Remember how far apart you had it. Right about there. Got a feeling this thing's going to smoke when I first fire it up. Okay, there was a spring somewhere up here tied to this. And I'm kind of wondering if it goes right there. Okay, it appears to go in there just like that. The spring goes into that groove. That arm looks like it pinches behind there, and then it seats back down. And I'm guessing it acts as a some sort of a balance. Let me put the screws in this thing real quick, and then I want to take a better look and see. Let's see if I can find a picture to see if that is exactly how it's supposed to be. Yep, so the arm of the stepper motor connects up here. There's a little spring with a tit sticking off the end of it, and it slides down inside this groove right here. Anyway, that's on there. I cannot believe how much oil is in this thing. Set that there for a second while we get these hoses hooked back up. See, this hose goes on right there. Right there. On the other side of the fuel line, let's make sure these things are cleared out. And the other line goes down to the pump itself and the shutoff valve. Looks like I need to turn this carb just a little bit because that screw isn't quite in the right spot. Something like that. Tighten up that drain while we're here. And there's these rubber bumpers on each side that those go to. Let's get the fuel line put on. And align those rubber bumpers. Get the gas tank put back on. All right, we'll get the clamshell put on. I'm trying to remember where this hose goes. As soon as I see it in the video, I'll know. Again, a lot of this was not necessary. That was only necessary because I needed to get all that oil out of there. Let's get those started. Had one regular screw right there. Oh, I remember now. This screw, or this hose went right up beside the carburetor. It was a plastic piece with a hole on it. Now I cleaned this thing completely. I wiped it down. I sprayed it with brake cleaner, and I am still getting oil everywhere. So there was a piece of plastic right here that hose goes up through. It was like a breather or a vent. Goes up right inside that thing. Two hands. There we go, just like that. I even wiped these gaskets down. I'm still pulling oil out of everything. Yep, I even cleaned this out. I've just got oil everywhere. If I didn't know better, I'd swear this thing was upside down. but it had so much oil and gas and everything else inside it. I just know that that's what it was. Very fortunate that it didn't seem to get onto the inverter board. As I said, that's an expensive mistake right there. Of course, that's counting chickens before they're hatched, because realistically, I don't even know if the inverter board works. I've never even seen this thing run. Hopefully that's about to change. All right, let's get a half a quart of oil. I found exactly a half a quart of 5W30 oil. Hose this stuff back in where they belong. There's two passageways down here sticking through the case. To make sure that the motor turns over now. Turns over nice and easy. Nice. Let's get the filter back in. Got a couple little passageways here on this side, so this must be this side. Oh, I wasn't supposed to put this cover on just yet. Let's pull that out a little bit. There we go. Same on this side. Yeah, but we're going to go ahead and put the cover on for right now. So we're going to try to go ahead and use this spark plug too. Why not? Because first off, I don't have one. And number two, it has no runtime on it. It just has coating of oil, which it wasn't running with. It just got wet. And I dried it off. And it's an NGK. All right, let's get some gas in it and see if she makes power. Yeah, there's at least a half a gallon in there. Let's see. So that says off, that says on. The engine run switch is in the on position. Here's my choke. It's in choke. Let's open up the doors and see if we can make this thing smoke. Y'all ready for the smoke fest? Hopefully it starts. think she's about to start. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see it. I can see it pretty easy. It's smoking real bad. So let's see if it clears up after it runs for a little bit. Shouldn't be any mosquitoes in the neighborhood for a little while anyway. Let's try a drill. I'd like to see if a drill makes it rev up. It's in eco mode right now. Oh yeah, it revs up. I don't know if y'all heard it because the drill was so noisy. But it does rev up and go immediately back when it doesn't need any extra power. Let's check a vacuum cleaner. Yep, worked immediately. Shuts off easy. Turn it back on. Starts back up easy if I pull on it. And my favorite part. Single hand lift and throw it up on a table anywhere you want. 2,000 watts of power. Inverter style. The electronics take care of making sure that the power is perfectly clean. We've got the ability of tying the two of them together since this is the companion unit with the RV plug on it. That's an awesome find. Good Lord was on my side on this one. I think this will do exactly what I'm looking for it to do. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Hope you got something out of the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.